Well, she's not fucking Carrie.
It starts off that way. It starts off with a newt in a glass. And then it ends up with buckets of blood on stage when she doesn't get prom queen.
Well, she didn't know she was getting her period.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash Dipface Wormwood.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week, we take a look back in time to decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. Review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all the information at past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel where we play video games, host watch parties, edit this podcast live, and go through grueling sessions of fantasy baseball draft. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
Gene, before we get to tonight's movie, I want to welcome Ash back. She's toughing it out tonight with her arm cast, her microphone. You're looking tough. So we're glad you're back with us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I was a human crash test dummy for a week, and thanks for giving me the week off so I didn't have to sit. I was so worried I would ruin the recording for those of you out there. We have to sit very still. We don't get to be dynamic. And I was like, I'm going to just completely fuck it up if I record. So I appreciate you guys taking care of. I'm super bummed I missed Perfect, but hey, I'm back from Matilda.
And we appreciate you taking one for the team and getting the car accident out of the way. Because statistically speaking, now that you've had a car wreck this year, Big D and I will be safer during the Chop Top Challenge, where we could actually die if a car were to do whatever. As you said, the car flipping over your car would be potentially fatal for a man who is 6'7" and his head sticking out of a car.
I've thought of that, yes.
Yeah, with no top on the top of the car. Yeah, you guys are welcome. I mean, I've nothing else. I'm very selfless.
Yes, I appreciate it. And Gene, again, tonight's film, we're going into familiar territory. We talked about it. We talk about kids that are intelligent, they're resilient, and they're going to stand up against injustice and against the adults. Except this time, we're going to a genre that we haven't done in quite a long time, and it is the land of the whimsical storytelling. And that could be only one film. And it was for our great commissioner, Adam S., decided to commission as a gift for his wife the 1996 fantasy comedy, Matilda.
Well, and she wrote in and said, "Hi, Shat Crew. My husband and I have been fans of the pod for a long time now. We often listen on our drives back and forth, visiting family and friends in Eastern Kentucky, and we love hearing each of your takes on some of our favorite films. After going back and forth, my husband decided to give me the Shat for my birthday, and he landed on our all-time family favorite, Matilda. Matilda was a childhood favorite for both me and my husband. We have our own family memories with the movie and each grew up loving it. Since having our daughter 6 years ago, this has become a staple for our family. We first showed it to our daughter when she was around 4 years old, and to make it a fun experience, we put her mattress in the living room, and we all huddled up with popcorn to show our girl a movie we knew she would love. Since then, we have watched this movie with her multiple times a year, and every time we do, she wants to bring out the mattress and calls for a family fun night. I'm sure we'll even do a rewatch before this airs on the pod. This movie will always be special to our little family, and I hope you all love it as much as we do. Aaron."
I want to applaud Ash at this point for successfully reading this letter from Aaron too, because as I understand it, Ash is on muscle relaxers right now, which has incredible implications for an episode where we're talking about a little girl with magical abilities in a film directed by Danny DeVito. This should be very, very good.
Yes, my telekinesis is kicking in.
I almost feel bad after listening to that letter. Like if we besmirch this film, it's almost as if we're destroying a cherished family event and a memory.
I mean, I don't, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, I think, like, does anybody pay us, right? The commissions to be like, we want you all to talk about all the ways this is great. I mean, our best episodes are when we don't agree. So, it'll be fine.
You know how devastated children are when they find out that Shat the Movies doesn't think their favorite movie is cool.
Hey, we'll get the mattress out. The three of us will get together. We'll have a family fun night. And that's all that matters.
Well, Riley never wrote back after what we did to Nightmare Before Christmas, so there is precedence.
Matilda is a 1996 fantasy comedy co-produced and directed by Danny DeVito based on the 1988 novel of the same name by Roald Dahl. The film stars Mara Wilson as the title character with DeVito, Rhea Perlman, and Pam Ferris in supporting roles. The plot centers on a child prodigy who develops psychokinetic abilities and uses them to deal with her disreputable family and the tyrannical principal of her school. Matilda received positive reviews from critics, but was a bit of a commercial disappointment, grossing $47 million on a $36 million budget. It subsequently attained greater popularity after being released on home video. So Ash, Big D, we always ask what your memories are of the film we're covering. Tonight, it's Matilda. Ash, we'll start with you.
So I love Matilda. This is a book that I loved growing up. This is a book that I have read to my children, that my son now reads to us. We love it. We are huge fans of the musical version, both the Broadway as well as the Netflix version of the musical. So the story we really like. And this iteration of the film I've seen many times over the years and remembered it really fondly. But it was really difficult to watch in light of the resurgence of Matilda that's happened in the last 5 years. And I was like, okay, this will be great because like you guys out there, Aaron, we sat down and we watched this as a family. And I was like, okay, maybe the kids will enjoy it. But it was so difficult to get them to concentrate because they kept going, where's the musical? Where's the songs? Why is she not singing? Because this plot is very, very different. So I actually wound up watching this twice, once with my children who were not huge fans of this version, and then once to make sure I wasn't really screwing up in terms of my notes. So I think this is going to be an interesting one tonight.
Just wait till they discover that The Color Purple wasn't originally musical.
I know they're going to be like, where the fuck is the songs?
Where's the songs? This is all just prejudice and racism and slavery.
Depressing.
Where is the domestic violence? Where's the beatings?
Wait, there's no beatings in the new Color Purple?
I'd imagine if it was a musical.
Well,
oh, no.
I think musicals can be dark.
Yeah, you ever hear of Les Mis?
Or Sweeney Todd.
Just to sell her fucking teeth.
Well, her hair first and then her dignity.
Yeah.
Syphilis kills.
Well, Ash, you're apparently operating in an environment that's totally foreign to me, which is the world of Matilda, because I was not aware it was this big until we did the movie. And that's not to say I am not familiar with Roald Dahl's work, because I'm a big fan of other Roald Dahl books like the BFG and Fantastic Mr. Fox, James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Read those, seen the movies. I'm embarrassed to say I'd never read or seen Matilda, but it does seem, thankfully, that Dahl books translate well into film. I was just thinking after watching this of how many books that I love did not translate to film well. Anything by Kurt Vonnegut makes for a horrible, horrible movie, but a great book.
This is why we're friends. It's because I just appreciate that in the same conversation, Roald Dahl, Vonnegut, right? Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Slaughterhouse-Five. Only 2 degrees away.
I mean, they did try to do a movie version of Breakfast of Champions, and it was fucking awful.
Terrible. It was terrible.
So I wish I had the excuse of muscle relaxers, because this is becoming a trend, and it's made me start to look at myself, whether I'm actually starting to show early signs of loss of cognition, because I, again, completely mistook this film for another one. I just knew it was a late 90s movie. There was a girl with an M in her name. She's attending a boarding school. There's a mean teacher, a schoolmaster. It's based on a popular children's book. The kids go out. They get into some trouble. There's some adventure. But boy, I was wrong. This was not Madeline. This was Matilda. I was expecting a different kid. And there's going to be a chance. I was half expecting her to put on that hat. So this is the first time I'd seen this film or read the book or anything.
Okay, this explains why you didn't remember the telekinesis when we talked about it last week. You're like, there's telekinesis? But now I'm really fucked up, Big D, because now I realize out in the world, there's a Matilda, a Madeline, and a Coraline?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's Madeline is the one with the yellow coat, right?
That's Paddington Bear.
No.
She's the one with the hat.
No, that's George. That's Curious as George's dad.
And it's also set in France.
No, that's Tintin. Let's hit the trailer.
Once upon a time, there was a girl named Matilda.
Hi, Dad.
Get in the car, Melinda.
Matilda!
Whatever.
Who was extraordinary in every way.
Pretty soon you'll be able to do any multiplication, whether it's 2 times 7 or 13 times 379.
4,927. Wow.
She can multiply large sums in her head. So can a calculator.
But in a world where grown-ups make all the rules.
I'm smart. You're dumb.
I'm big and you're small.
I'm right.
And you're wrong.
In a school where the principal
In this school, I am God!
has no principles.
Yes, Miss Trunchbull. Sir. The Trunchbull used to be in the Olympics. Shot put, javelin, hammer throw.
She will discover
Somebody's gotta teach her a lesson.
deep inside herself
You should believe in whatever power you think you have inside of you.
a secret weapon
It's infinite powers.
to even the odds.
No more Miss Nice Girl. Hey, dip face. Have a carrot. Nah, you eat it.
Now,
Cookie! You will not leave this platform until you have consumed the entire confection!
she gives power
You can do it, Brucey!
to the powerless. Help to the helpless.
Harry, take your hat off.
I can't get it off.
And disaster to those who deserve it. From the author of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach, and the unique vision
What did you do to your hair?
of director Danny DeVito, comes the story of every kid's right to stand tall, no matter how small.
6-year-old genius Matilda Wormwood is neglected by her parents, Harry and Zinnia, and her older brother, Michael, but finds solace in the fictional worlds of books at the public library. When Matilda's parents refuse to enroll her into school, she puts bleach in her father's hair tonic and glues his hat to his head. One night, Harry catches Matilda reading Moby Dick, rips it up, and forces her to watch a game show on television. Matilda becomes increasingly enraged until the television explodes.
Because I had no reference for this film, the only thing I can do is fall back on the things that we have seen in over 370 plus movies at Shat the Movies in the 80s and 90s. So I have expectations. We meet the parents, Harry and Zinnia, the Wormwoods, and I'm like, they're going to be fucking monsters. They have to be the worst. I'm expecting Harry Potter's aunt, uncle, and the fat cousin Dudley. They're going to force him to live under the stairs, or he's going to be working and she's going to be working in some factory. It's going to be terrible. And it really wasn't that bad. Yes, you know what? They're a bit self-absorbed. They're a bit negligent, but they're not outright evil. Nobody's torturing her. Nobody's abusing her. They're focused on their own lives. You know, Harry with the dealership, Zinnia with bingo. You know, and yes, they're not focused on Madeline's love of the library or reading. They're doing their own thing, but she's not physically abused. She's emotionally neglected, and they do, you know, kind of ignore what she wants. But I was expecting there to be so much worse, but there is a bit nuance here that they were more neglectful and misguided, but not explicitly bad.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, these people are horrible. They're a little neglectful. They leave a 4-year-old at home alone to sign for packages, right? Like she gets into stuff and they rip up her shit. You know, they do not love her, they do not feed her well, they do not interact with her. It's criminal neglect. I mean, I think that they are explicitly bad, and I think they are very abusive. They don't hit her, but they're not good parents.
I'd like to point out the chasm for listeners who don't know Big D that well between what he accepts from parents and his own parenting style, because this man eats the shit out of his own child's asshole, and it feels like these parents are doing kind of okay. Like, Big D, how many hours a week, just give me a ballpark, do you spend with your daughter?
Oh, I couldn't count that high. It's a lot. I'm active in her life. But what I'm saying is, I'm saying per the movie, what we expect. You expect she's going to be living in squalor. She's going to be physically abused. Yes, they're neglectful. The reason she's not in school is because they honestly believe she's 4 years old. They don't think she should be enrolled yet.
Right. So we're just like giving them a pass on that. Like they're nuanced. They're not that bad. They don't even know how old their kid is.
No, I want to clarify, Big D. I don't disagree with you here. I'm with you on this. I just want to point out that maybe you should go a little easier on yourself with your obligation to your child. You're drawing a line here of what is abuse versus neglect versus they're still being okay parents. And I agree with you. Like, I kept waiting for the part where they outright abuse Matilda because she fucking abuses them. Like, she is way worse to them. They're, like you said, they're doing their own thing. And sometimes they forget she's there. And they do put her in situations where she's a 4-year-old walking 10 blocks every day to the library and they don't even know that she's gone. Not great parenting. But yeah, they're also not abusive. They're not beating her up. They're not locking her in a box. They're not making her live under the stairs. And I'm going to go a step further and say, I don't even dislike Harry and Zinnia. Their house is amazing. I love their sense of style. They know exactly who they are, and they're only trying to raise a child assuming that child's going to like the same things they do. Like, maybe they're trying to be cool parents, right? They're like, why would you want to go to school when you could watch TV? Why would you want to sit there and make pancakes, having to do eggs and all that shit when you could just eat candy and cereal for breakfast?
Yeah, you got the family business. You know, we care about you. We want to nurture your free spirit. Right. That's what we're going to do. We're going to let you find your way in life.
But I want to focus in on this thing you brought up. You brought up Harry Potter. And as we get older, I am really starting to see how derivative J.K. Rowling's work was. Like, when you're a kid and you don't know any better, you're like, wow, this is really fascinating. She's building worlds, right? It's the world of Hogwarts. And the latter Potter films, still aces, love them. But go back and watch early Harry Potter. It is so clearly just Matilda, right? Raised by simpletons who don't understand her, recognized as a prodigy by a special educator, doing magic shit without knowing she's magic, getting revenge on mean people. And the thing is, I found myself saying Matilda actually does it better than Harry Potter did.
I mean, I don't know if I would go that far, but yes, I mean, nothing is original anymore. I mean, this is not the only story that this is true of, right? Like, I think that the mischievous, precocious kid is a really common trope that we see year over year. And Matilda itself gets really derivative in that way, depending on like which iteration you look at. Because this one is very, very, very different than the book and some of the other like more classic interpretations. But regardless of that, this movie, the success of it, any story of Matilda, just like Harry Potter, lives and dies on who's playing that title role. Like, we had to in Harry Potter believe that, Daniel Radcliffe was really charming and kind of sad, but believable and kind of badass eventually over the years. Otherwise, it doesn't work. The same thing's true for Matilda. She has to both make you smile and like kind of want to cry because she's depressing. And everybody remembers Mara Wilson from this time period. She's in Mrs. Doubtfire, she's in the Rugrats, and she's really sweet in those movies. She's got that little lisp and she's got like the sad puppy dog eyes, and there's just certain child actors who were made to make us feel bad for them. Haley Joel Osment, I think, is the classic example. Like, you just like, I can't tell you, like, I get misty like when I look at the child's face because he looks like really depressing. And Mara, I think, is that way as well. But here's the problem. The older those kids get, like the less cute that shtick gets. And so she's got that little lisp, which worked in Mrs. Doubtfire, but I don't know if I loved it throughout this movie. And this is a big quip of mine, and I'm not saying that everybody out there should agree with me on this, but I got really hung up on the fact that she's not British, because I think Matilda is a very uniquely like Brit character. Like, she's supposed to be British, she's supposed to be at a boarding school. It just makes sense. And it was very hard for me to love it being set in America, although I get it. Can you imagine Danny DeVito fucking doing a British accent and being like a British dad? No, that would have been awful. And he was stellar, so like I let it go. But Matilda, I don't know if I loved her.
I totally agree with you. The final form Matilda we get, 6.5-year-old Matilda, don't even care if she didn't grow up to be cute. This kid's just reprehensible. But not all Matildas are bad. Like 4-year-old Matilda, the one that they used in between the baby and the 6-year-old, cute as fuck. Like when she's walking the 10 blocks every day in traffic and she's just this little kid in the dress, very, very cute. She's reading in that big chair, lying on the table, like across the chair, and she's speaking all sweetly and confidently to the librarian. No, thank you. I can manage myself. Adorable child. And then we get this 6.5-year-old Matilda. And I got to be honest, she's a bit stuck up. Like her dad comes in and talks to her about, She's correcting people. She's like this irritating know-it-all that I thought seemed kind of like an asshole.
I totally agree. There was 5 of them, Gene. The one you're talking about, the 4-year-old, is Sarah Magdalene. She was so cute and innocent, and she had that Haley Joel Osment feel, like you just wanted to hug him. I agree. The Matilda later is a bit dark. She's an asshole. And she actively takes a role in punishing people that I didn't see anyone being malicious to her until she gets to the boarding school.
Whoa, they used 5 different Matildas?
5 different ones.
Oh,
Newborn,
shit.
9-month-old, 2-year-old, 4-year-old, and then Maria Wilson.
Well, babies all look the same to me.
Aliens.
It's like white people.
Mm-hmm.
While we're on the topic of cute kids, though, did you guys notice how incredible some of the other kids were in this movie?
Mm-hmm.
It made me like really question casting. Like if they had their pick of all these little shits, there were some really cute kids in this movie. Amanda Thripp, who almost gets her like coochie torn open by the spiked fence. I was very worried for her when she gets like hammer thrown around. Great actor. Very adorable. Going through the flower field. Very cute. Lavender Brown, whose name I won't get into. Wow. Best kid in the whole damn movie. I was like, they should have made her Matilda with the glasses and the hair. Fucking adorable kids. And instead they went with this shit heel with the fucked up teeth.
Wow.
I really did not like her.
No, I can tell.
I agree, but I don't agree with you though, Big D, that she's like dark. I don't think she's dark. I think she just like Jean said, she's a know-it-all. She's that kid who assumes that they're smarter than everybody else, and like intentionally like pulling out her copy, like her well-worn copy of Moby Dick of all books. Like, I am call me Ishmael. Like, fuck you, Matilda. Like, no, like we didn't need that. Like, she just feels gross.
Yeah, but I think if you set a darker like score, when she's going in, and Matilda realized that people could be punished, and then she's going through the bottles, there is a conniving, maniacal nature that goes beyond just a child. I felt like she was going to enjoy making them suffer.
I also feel like we need to make a cut of this podcast in case the child is listening to it, like where we bleep stuff out, or just maybe we do a 5-minute one where we're like, Matilda was the best movie ever. Air mattress.
No, it's not. Emma
Children
agreed.
will have to grow up eventually.
Yes, Emma was not a big fan of this. She took notes and all, and in the end, she wasn't very positive.
Excellent. Good kids. Harry sells a car to tyrannical Principal Miss Trunchbull, who enrolls Matilda as a student at Cruncham Hall Elementary School, where Trunchbull's abusive methods of discipline include throwing students out the window and locking them in the chokey. When Trunchbull forces a student named Bruce Bogtrotter to eat an entire cake as punishment for stealing from the cafeteria, Matilda leads the junior and senior students in cheering Bruce to success. Later that day, Matilda discovers her father is under surveillance by the FBI, but her parents refuse to believe her.
So, Gene, you mentioned how a lot of this film can be found in other material of the time. And maybe it's because I was the fat kid and I'll always be the fat kid. These characters speak to me. We meet Bruce, and right away I'm like, oh, shit, my eyes are rolling. I'm like, here's the fat kid character. You know, it might be Chunk from the Goonies or the fat kid from Little Giants who's going to realize at some point, oh, his extra size and extra weight is going to be his way to help the group overcome some obstacle. Maybe he's going to break Matilda out of the closet. They're going to use him to run through the door because that's what it is. The fat kids are normally good for some laughs. And then the movie somehow flips it. And it does this a couple times where you think he's going to be the source of like comedy. Instead, he's out there in front of his peers. We're thinking it's going to be another Stand By Me pie eating where either he's going to puke, he's going to fart, the kids are going to laugh. But no, Bruce somehow becomes a hero through his inaction. Everyone's like, yes, you can do it. They feel pity for him. He embraces it on stage and he becomes the non-typical fat character. But how did Bruce's parents okay this role? You read this script and this scene was one of the longest to film in this movie. I felt bad for Bruce. Bruce versed with chocolate cake. I don't know if the book does it like this, but give the fat kid some applause for being the first one who's not a victim.
I felt a real sense of triumph when Bruce turned Trunchbull's cake torture against her. Like, he's a little porker. He stole her cake and the kids embraced his stellar appetite. They're like, that's his power. And maybe it has to do with my involvement in combat sports because I have a lot of respect for the big people. The big people are going to fuck you up. Like, you tried rolling with a big person, they're going to hurt you. You tried boxing with a big person, they're going to hurt you. There's a reason why there's weight classes. So I always have a ton of respect for the big kids. I think he was being appreciated for his individualism and his talent. They're like, yeah, Bruce, let's do it. And it was really one of the rare instances because the kids can't fight Trunchbull. Like, she's too big, right? As she says, I'm big, you're small. But what they can do is make her look like an idiot. And Bruce did it the best.
But we agree. He was rightfully accused. He did eat the cake, right? Because he comments how his mom's is better, basically admitting his guilt, right? Or was he just being framed?
No. It was really him. He ate the cake.
Okay, good. But Ash, I want to go back here talking about Matilda and my view of her being a bit dark. I think the movie does, again, as ridiculous as this film is, there are some shades of gray. Like Matilda's parents, I don't think they do things very well or very bad. They're somewhere in the middle. I think she is the same. She seems to be mostly an honest kid. She prides herself on the rules. She calls out her dad for being a crook. She hates that people abuse library books. But there's also something in her that flips when she decides she can punish people. I think she gets a little too much joy out of the hair products and gluing her dad's hat down. Or when she goes into Trunchbull's house and she starts to use her powers to make her think that there is some kind of a possession and torment. You have to admit, there is a little bit of a darker side to Matilda that makes her just not that warm, loving kid who you want to root for. Harry Potter never tortures anyone, does he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who, the cousin?
He blows up Aunt Marge.
Yeah, and he puts roast beefy weeps in with the snake.
Mm-hmm.
Not fully intentionally, but he wants bad shit to happen. And then Harry Potter also has like a weird like Superman 2 like dark turn at parts of the series where he kind of goes a little bit too far.
Order of the Phoenix.
Order of the Phoenix, yeah. They have to rein him back in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Half-Blood Prince when he uses the spell on Malfoy and cuts him open.
And then he tries to use it on Snape and Snape's like, you dare use my spell against me?
I am Half-Blood Prince.
So do you think anybody needed to rein Matilda in?
No.
You think this is the beginning of her powers? Where do you think it's going to go from here?
Well, she's not fucking Carrie.
It starts off that way. It starts off with a newt in a glass. And then it ends up with buckets of blood on stage when she doesn't get prom queen.
Well, she didn't know she was getting her period. But, like, the thing is here, like, that's the beginning of Carrie. She doesn't know she's getting her period. They all throw the tampons at her.
Oh, I was thinking of Christine.
Yeah, that's a car.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thinking of oil changes.
Well, I think that here's the thing. Roald Dahl, he has a little bit of darkness in all that he does. Like Willy Wonka is a really screwed up character. And I think that, definitely there's a little bit of that sinister nature and really undermining all that he does, or underpining all that he does. But I think that here, I actually found that this was one of the ways that Matilda was the most relatable, because she's like a genius child, but the way she like punks her dad are actually really kind of silly. Like, she dyes his hair with some peroxide, she glues a hat to his head. I mean, he's not going to be killed by any of those things. She's just very mischievous. I don't think that she's good or that she's bad. I just think she's little and she doesn't really get like the world that she's in. So she acts out in ways that I think actually prove to be very charming. It's the ways that I think she's the most charming when she does that, because she, just seems like a little Dennis the Menace. Well, and if we're going to stick with tropes, like any movie that has a precocious kid has an adult that just like cannot like abide anything that they do at all. I mentioned Dennis the Menace. You got the guy who's yelling at him from the porch like his neighbor. This is just something that happens. You've got, Mr. Dursley and Harry Potter. And in Matilda, you've got Trunchbull. And for me, one of my favorite children's movie villains, children's book villains of all time is Principal Trunchbull. I think she is incredible. The way that she's built, the writing crop, her teeth, the way that she shot puts kids is hilarious. Like, she just cracks me up. And I think that she's really universal, this character, because when I read Matilda to my children, they laugh and they want more of her. And this movie captures her well. I don't think it captures her as well as Emma Thompson does in the movie musical version, because she is just like gold. But it's great here. From the opening scene where they don't show her face to her like throwing the kid by the pigtails, Trunchbull is something that I think Danny DeVito and his team got really, really right in this film.
Do you know that she actually lost like the tip of a finger doing that scene where she's spinning around the pigtailed like mannequin? She lost the tip of her finger, and then later on, when all the chalk in the erasers is blown around, she ended up going to the hospital. This woman, she took a bullet for this role. But this is an honest question for both of you. It's a social justice warrior question, because the way I read Trunchbull, I read her as like an Eastern Bloc Olympic athlete. She's a butch. She's kind of juiced up. She's wearing the Hans and Franz like sweatpants and sweatshirt. Is this problematic? Can you do this butch? Like, she almost has one eyebrow. What else is she? Like her uncle's Magnus. She's got to be some like Eastern Bloc athlete, right?
I thought she was British, maybe. I didn't get the Eastern Bloc thing. I did get like major lesbian vibes, but I also got that from Miss Honey. Sure. Like, I think that Honey and Trunchbull are both lesbians.
Yeah.
You think Honey is too?
For sure.
I mean, yeah.
Really? How did I miss that? What gave it away?
What gave it away to me is that she's living in her little cottage perfectly fucking happy without any dude fucking up her life.
With some tea. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, she's renting from a radish farmer. Like, she's really cool. Definitely a lesbian. But I didn't get the Eastern Bloc thing. I mean, I loved Trunchbull's superhuman abilities. Like, it was fucking great. Like, her just, like, they went just wild with this character, and I really, really liked it. But I was really worried, guys, that they were never going to show her face. And because when we first are introduced to Trunchbull, you see her shadow, and then you see, like, from the waist down, like, what kids would see. You see the socks, you see the shoes, the belt. And I thought, oh man, if we go this whole movie, like the next hour, not seeing her face, it was starting to give me anxiety. Like, I was getting a little bunched up on the couch and like starting to grip I don't know what was wrong with me. It was really freaking me out. And so I was relieved when we saw that face and those teeth and the eyebrows. I said, okay, good. It's a face. That's nice.
Well, it's such a good reveal too. Like, it's so great because she's not great looking.
Gene has no problem laying into the messed up teeth on Matilda, but he's letting this one slide.
I don't know. I thought she was all right. After discovering the car Harry sold her was faulty, Trunchbull locks Matilda in the chokey. While Miss Honey rescues Matilda, Matilda's friend Lavender Brown puts a newt in Trunchbull's water jug. Trunchbull accuses Matilda, who telekinetically tips the glass over, splashing the newt onto Trunchbull. Miss Honey invites Matilda home for tea and reveals that Trunchbull is her abusive aunt who inherited her parents' home. Matilda and Miss Honey sneak into Trunchbull's house to retrieve some of Miss Honey's belongings and narrowly escape when Trunchbull unexpectedly returns early.
So I want to go back. We got to talk here about Miss Honey a little bit. And one of the side effects that I've realized about doing podcasts for TV or movies is it does suck a lot of the fun out of it, because I find myself looking for things. You're trying to problem solve like we did for Westworld, like the Westworld effect, where you're looking for, have I seen these set of tropes, this typical plot twist? So I'm always looking for it. And I don't mean to, it just happens. And I'm always finding myself looking for some like hidden subversion that they're going to drop on us and be like, okay, I saw that coming. And there is no explanation for when it happens sometimes, and a character does a dark heel turn. But Miss Honey, she's got my like radar going off. And I'm thinking there has to be something. And I could have sworn when they first meet her, she is the last and only beacon of light in this entire world. She's the only competent, compassionate adult other than the librarian. And I thought there was some hint at like a darker past, that there was something going on, because she is so overly loving. She's so overly helpful. She's showing up at Matilda's door early on. You know, as soon as she discovers she's got powers of math and multiplication and telekinesis, she's in there almost like she's trying to adopt her. Anyone who hasn't read the source material doesn't know. I kept waiting for some turn, an ulterior motive that never came. And then I just felt stupid for thinking it was going to happen.
I don't know who hurt you in your past that made you feel this way, but I think that's very sad, because I love Miss Honey. She's, I think, so genuine. I don't think that, like, at the beginning she wants to adopt Matilda, but I think she wants to take care of her. I think that she's very much your consummate, like, authentic teacher, where, like, she owns all of her students' problems, and Matilda's included in that.
So you're talking about this. Can you just go as an educator? Oh, just come over my house this afternoon. She's inviting her over. She's overstepping her bounds as a teacher. You didn't think it was a little bit weird?
Well, yeah, I think that, you know, unfortunately, the world we live in today, like, they couldn't do that. But I think she, you know, again, this is the problem with the book, with it not being, with the movie, with it not being a boarding school, because, like, Miss Honey lives there, like, right in the woods in the little bitty, like, cottage, and can go and interact with kids in a different way. But I think that she loves her. I think she loves all of her kiddos.
And for the record, no one hurt me except for this podcast. This podcast hurt me because I'm always trying to find it.
But you're not nuts here, because the movie, like the narrator in the film, Danny DeVito, he says, Miss Honey was a wonderful teacher and a friend to everyone, but her life was not simple and beautiful as it seemed. She had a deep, dark secret, and though it caused her great pain, she didn't let it interfere with her teaching. So I'm watching the screen too, and talk about getting crazy from Westworld. I noticed that Miss Honey, in the scene where we meet her, she's wearing a bracelet on her left arm, and there's a tissue tucked between the bracelet and her wrist. And I'm like, what's going on there? What's going on with the bracelet? Like, did she try to commit suicide and she's covering it up? Or is that where she feeds on the children? Like, I don't know. And so you're not, I mean, listen, yeah, the podcast fucked us up, but you're not out of bounds for thinking, when I heard dark secret, I thought something really horrible was going on with Miss Honey. And in fact, the dark secret is that maybe Trunchbull killed her dad and took over her house. And now she has to live in a radish farmer's cottage.
Again, though, I think that it's sad that you guys felt that way, because I think Miss Honey is such a sweet character. And I mentioned at the beginning that I am a big proponent of Matilda. I've interacted with it in so many different ways. And I remember when I was growing up and I would watch this, I don't know about you all, especially you, Big D, because you have a kiddo. Like, I did not think much at all about having children, because I assumed I just wouldn't have them until I did. But I think that it's very strange that I have this distinct memory from watching this movie that, like, I remember wanting to be like Miss Honey if I ever did have kids. And there's a reason for that. Like, I had a great childhood, but I was raised by a wonderful mom, but a very reactive mom. Like, my mom panicked a lot about things and just was very, very intense. And, you know, like, when you call my mother, she assumes that, like, you're dying or you're hurt, like, because she has immense amounts of anxiety. And so this concept of, like, a very calm, like, sweet, measured potential mother was, like, something I really wanted as a kid. And I promised myself if I ever did have children that I would grow up and be like Miss Honey. And of course, you know, genetics, and I've inherited my mother's anxiety disorder, and I probably am reactive in a lot of ways. It probably different ways than my mother, but I'm sure I'm failing at it miserably, but I did love seeing Miss Honey again and reminding myself like how much I wanted that as a kid and how sweet she is with Matilda, and looking at my own children and going, okay, like, you know, I could see as a child why they would find that so appealing.
Yeah, I can't point to a specific like character issue with my mom or reaction issue. And I'm not saying that like your childhood was bad or that your mom was bad. Just personally, I had a terrific childhood. I can't really like say anything specific about my mom. I had loads of aunties growing up that were very, very supportive. And even so, teachers like gave me this special objective stability that meant a lot as a kid. And I think they come in clutch for a lot of different kids for a lot of different reasons. For me, it was that, you know, coming from an immigrant family with language barriers, and then also a family that didn't necessarily understand the same things that I was learning in school because they didn't learn what I learned in school. I needed that objectivity. I needed my teachers who recognized talents that I had that my family didn't necessarily understand. You know, it's the old trope. Like if you're an Iranian kid, lawyer, doctor, engineer, those are the jobs that your parents understand. When I wanted to go into journalism, what is that? Like, what do you do? I want to be an editor. What is that? Right. I also cared about topics that my family didn't give a shit about. Right. Like, and there were teachers there to talk with about those topics and kind of foster and cultivate those interests. To me, Miss Honey is the epitome of that comfort, right? Like I could see as a kid why this would be such a endearing character, because she's everything you want, especially if you don't feel heard or understood at home. Matilda practices her telekinetic powers and returns to Trunchbull's house to retrieve a doll and pose as the vengeful spirit of Magnus, Miss Honey's father, but she accidentally leaves behind her hair ribbon. The next day, Matilda returns the doll to Miss Honey and reveals her powers. When Trunchbull visits the class to make the students confess, Miss Honey stands up for the house incident and reveals her secret, shocking the students. Matilda telekinetically writes a message on the blackboard, once again posing as the spirit of Magnus and demanding that Trunchbull give Miss Honey her house and her money back, accusing Trunchbull of murdering Magnus. So we've now described how Matilda is exacting her revenge on people. It's progressed from the bleach and the hair tonic and gluing hats to like actually stealing things from people's fucking houses and creeping around the place, freaking people out. I can accept that Matilda has powers. Okay, that's totally fine. Like if that's what your character has, she's got some powers. That's fine. Who am I to deny somebody some magic, right? But that is a fucking lazy character. Like, come on, people. She's a genius. So she's got genius and the telekinesis. One or the other, right? She never uses the genius to overcome any obstacles. That's really what I wanted to see. Outsmart some people, Matilda, if you're so smart. But she only uses it to what? Be a fucking know-it-all. She uses it to show off at math. She claims to like books, Ash, that literally nobody likes. No one likes Moby Dick.
Nope.
Nobody likes Moby Dick.
Only people who want to sound smart say that they like Moby Dick and don't realize that it's 800 pages about the whaling industry. Herman Melville didn't like Moby Dick.
Moby Dick is the Decemberists of literature.
Yes, or the Lumineers. I was going to go Lumineers, but yeah.
And when push comes to shove, Matilda has to use brute force to solve all of her problems. It's so unimaginative. I would rather see her outsmart people, and I kept waiting for that moment where maybe her powers failed her and she had to like use her wits to actually win at something, which also makes her much more relatable to normal children who are probably sitting around their bedrooms trying to move shit with their brains.
Well, do you think there's a chance we're overstating her intellectual ability?
No,
I mean, maybe in the source material they demonstrate how bright she is, but all we've seen her do is multiply, you know, like whatever. That's a good parlor trick that she could have learned some technique.
She wrote her name in baby food before she could walk.
Maybe it's not a reliable narrator, but the only thing I took where I thought she really used the library or her advanced intellectual skills is she had the foresight to go research the legal process of adoption, print out the paperwork, and have it with her. But I agree, Gene, I would have rather had her somehow put the pieces together about Magnus's murder, do something other than the basics, show that she is a 4-6-year-old genius and outsmart the adults instead of making a newt fly out of a glass into somebody's mouth. It was lazy. Lazy, I say, just lazy.
Well, I think that, you know, there's some really very deliberate choices though with all of that Danny DeVito is making. And we've not talked a lot about the fact that like he also directed this movie. So clearly he must have had like a very distinct vision that he wanted to do. And I think that some of his choices are, let's call them interesting. I'm not going to spend a lot of time like comparing the book to this version of the movie because I don't think it's really worth that. But I think it's at least worth mentioning the book, the original one, you know, it has a lot of whimsy, it has a lot of fun, but this movie makes some choices to take that whimsy and fun and make them like very distinctly America within the mid 90s to create these plot points. So like the inclusion of like the FBI thing, like all of that, like I don't think it makes the story worse, but I do think it makes it strange. And interestingly enough, I'm not alone in that. I went and read a bunch of reviews of it. I always do that after I'm done with my notes, like just to kind of see how close I am to how people, you know, felt about the film when it originally came out. And most of the reviews that came out at the time talked about how it was weird or it was strange or unique in some way, the way that, you know, DeVito had kind of translated Roald Dahl here. And it becomes like this amalgam of like a sci-fi little children's movie with like kind of like a Home Alone type vibe where, you know, she's trying to hurt him because, you know, Big D, I find it very interesting that you're like, she's dark and she's got an underbelly of, you know, sinister nature. Like Kevin is a lot fucking worse than Matilda
We agree.
is. Like, he hurts a lot of people worse than she does. But, you know, is Kevin evil? No, he's just a kid.
Yeah, Gene put together an article about all the medical, like what would have happened taking a paint can to the face. Kevin is dark. Kevin would be a murderer. And I think Matilda's right up there with him.
Kevin has people trying to break into his home and kill him, though.
But he lets
Matilda
them.
is never in any danger.
Well, you know, neglect is danger.
Oh,
When you're that little, like, I mean, neglect is dangerous.
she's smart enough. You couldn't look up the paperwork to go get yourself put into Child Protective Services or to actually like report your parents, or she could have found other means. I think she could have. And I don't think she was really dark. I think there was like an underpinning of just some darkness.
She watched The Craft once or twice.
Mm.
But Ash, to your point, DeVito saved this movie. Like, I would be utterly disinterested in this film if it weren't for the comedy and quirkiness he brought to it. And I can't help but think that he had something to do with the casting as well. I fully expected this movie to be... I fully expected a movie about a really smart kid with powers that triumphs over a mean principal. I did not expect what DeVito did here, bringing in John Lovitz, hosting a show called The $1 Million Sticky, or Paul Rubens as an FBI agent with a running gag of being mistaken for surfer dude, bodybuilder, male stripper, powerboat salesman. Like, there's some really funny shit going on in this movie that DeVito clearly added in, maybe to sweeten it a little bit for adults who are disinterested in the primary storyline. Trunchbull attacks the class at random in a rage, but Matilda protects them, triggering a food fight that exiles Trunchbull. After Miss Honey moves back into her house, Harry, Zinnia, and Michael come to collect Matilda and flee to Guam to avoid the FBI. Matilda refuses to go, saying she would rather be adopted by Miss Honey. Her parents sign the adoption papers, and Matilda lives happily with Miss Honey, who becomes the new principal of Cruncham Hall, and the two eventually become a loving family.
I will say this. I do think they do a very cute job of wrapping this movie up with like a very tight little bow and a great, you know, the fashion of a great children's movie at the end. You get DeVito in that hilarious yellow tie. You've got Rita Perlman, who's just the best in this movie. She's in that leopard print and she's very much using like the Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors voice. Like she sounds like she's like auditioning for it the whole film. And I also think that this is the best scene for both like Beth Davidson and Mara Wilson as well. You've got, you know, my children who were completely checked out this entire movie. You know, they did not particularly enjoy it, but they were invested here at the end. They were worried Matilda would have to go with their quote unquote mean family. And it was surprising that after such, you know, kind of a weirdo little bit of a film that DeVito got like kind of real sentimentality out at the end.
But even with that sentimentality, though, we got that quirkiness again, that DeVito magic. I'm becoming a fan of this way of storytelling because where are they going? Guam. Like, of all countries, we're going to Guam to avoid the FBI. Like, even saying it is weird and funny. And that was the magic of this movie for me. There's a secondary film within the film that was really appealing.
See, and again, I just have some questions for you guys as someone who had no idea what I was walking into. The narration. Traditionally, when we get the narration voiced by a character in the film, it will turn out in the end that someone is telling that story. How does it didn't make sense to me that the character is narrating as well with information he wouldn't have known. It seemed a bit odd. This wasn't like Princess Bride, where you're reading a story to your grandchild.
Yeah, I don't think it was the character. I think it was just Danny DeVito.
Just Danny DeVito?
Reading.
Yeah,
So.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Ash, in the subsequent books, is this a series, I assume? Or is it just one book?
I mean,
Now you're thinking of Amelia Bedelia.
No, because
Yeah.
I know you'd mentioned
Or
that
Fancy Nancy.
we've had the Fancy Nancy. That's a bad one.
What?
That we've had the Matilda like Renaissance. So I thought maybe there was some additional.
No, it just
information
became a
about that.
really, really successful musical. And then, the girl from Hereditary that gets her head chopped off by the car, like she's the original Matilda in the musical. And then the Netflix musical was fantastic. So
Yeah, and Roald Dahl died like 2 years after this came out, so I don't think
Yeah.
he wrote any more Matildas.
nope.
But maybe his spirit did.
Woo!
Now's the time in the podcast we give our Shat score for Matilda. Our Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get our perspective. But 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's when you read books and know you are not alone. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a movie. It's when some people are cops. Ash, we'll start with you. How many wipes would you give Matilda?
I think that this is a fine movie. It's sweet. It's cute. It's not amazing. It's not bad. It's average. I think that, the main point for me is that you can't help but compare it to the book or even like the eventual other interpretations of it. I think that this story is such a classic for kids and it didn't need a lot of the things that DeVito added to it, but whatever. It's fine. It's not Roald Dahl's Matilda. It's Danny DeVito's Matilda. And for Danny DeVito's Matilda, it's 2.5 wipes.
The movie I chose to watch was Danny DeVito's Matilda, and that wasn't a bad movie. I think it was above average. And I might be off the mark here because I've never read the book, Ash, so I don't really have that to compare it to. Maybe that would sour my score a little bit. But the way I looked at this movie, all told, was I more often entertained than not? And I was. I just didn't like Matilda. I still hate that shit. So 2 wipes from Gene Lyons.
Yeah, for me, it was quirky. And then that's what kept me in it. And Danny DeVito was great. I thought the cast was great. Paul Rubens, that side character thing with the police was great. But Gene, much like you, I couldn't stand Matilda. The older Matilda, I didn't like. I couldn't root for her. I found myself, since I was unfamiliar at the end, I was wondering, was this all from her perspective, that we're going to learn that all of these things were her way of coping with what she had gone through, and her powers were a manifestation in her imagination of how she would problem solve? It's average. It's average. Emma did not like it. Other than the salamander, the newt in the mouth, she really wasn't a big fan of it. And I gauge who the audience was. Were these Roald Dahl fans? Were these meant for kids? It was a bit of a hybrid. It's average. It's the best I can do. Wasn't terrible. Wasn't great. It was just okay.
All right. With 2.5 wipes from Big D and Ash and 2 wipes from me, that gives us an average wipe score of 2.3 repeating wipes for Matilda.
Wow, Gene, that now ties this in a large block of films. This now ties it in the 163 spot with Rocky IV, Point Break, Casino, Demolition Man, Money Pit, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Santa Claus, Ronin, Young Guns, Species, Harley Davidson, The Marlboro Man, The Great Outdoors, Vice Versa, Natural Born Killers, don't know what that's doing in there, Dead Men, and that's it. That's a big block.
An abomination. An abomination that Bram Stoker's Dracula is tying this movie.
Big D didn't like the old-timey effects. I don't like the old-timey effects, he said.
Abomination.
Listen, let's
Gary
get over
Oldman
that.
was in a movie and you gave it a poor score, Big D. What is
Let's
wrong
get over
with
that.
you?
Okay, that one I have to go back. I think it was a lot of things.
Because you were thrown off about my story about being naked in the sleeping bag.
See me. But no, we
See me
agree
now.
on this film at least? Take out Bram Stoker's. Anything else you have a problem with in that?
I think Young Guns is better than this movie.
Me too. I think that Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man is better than this movie.
I might have been too kind here, but I can't help it. I mean, the The comedy part of this movie was fucking funny. Seeing a child get shot, I was like, there's no way they're going to do this. And then they fucking just chucked that kid. And then I thought she was going to hit the fence.
Yeah, I thought there was a good chance that was going to happen.
Yeah.
You should watch the Netflix musical. It's delightful.
I don't know. After seeing Spirited, after seeing Spirited, I don't know if I could watch another musical.
No, you can watch this one. It's wonderful.
Aaron, I hope you're not too disappointed with that score. And Aaron had a question in the letter of whether it was whether Lavender says a frog, or a bug. And Ash, I believe in the musical, it's clarified it is a frog, not a bug. So that settles that question. And speaking of questions, we have some email to get to that's been waiting patiently. Our first email comes from Molly in Minnesota, and it's about Elf.
Well, Molly writes in and says, "Hey, Shat Crew, I've been a fan pretty much since the very inception of the podcast. I stuck with you all and fully understood and agreed with you letting Roger go, even though he was a whole lot of comic fun at times, as was listening to him spar with Jean. I love the addition of Ash and even got into some heated debates on the doofuses who clearly just had a problem with a feminine perspective. But man, was it necessary for Jean to go the ACAB route on your holiday episode? I realize that your own personal beliefs and experiences are going to shape how you see films, and that because of this, sometimes it's going to creep into your reviews. But to go so aggressively into attacking an entire profession and thinking it's funny, and somehow in the holiday spirit to make really nasty comments about all cops being bastards, many of whom are out working away from their families on the very holiday that Gene is all warm and cozy with his new wife celebrating, really rubbed me the wrong way, because just like every other profession out there, not all cops are bastards. The medical professions are responsible for nearly 1/4 of all accidental deaths in this country because they made a mistake or bad judgment call. A huge amount of time, more than the 1% of deaths that happen annually from a law enforcement situation. Some of them are purposely neglectful, particularly when it comes to the care of the elderly and people of color, and they're not even making those mistakes under the potential of their own lives being at risk like cops are. When was the last time you saw the medical profession being constantly maligned, having their families and homes attacked, their lives destroyed, or having podcasters make uninformed statements declaring them all pieces of crap? Why don't they have the highest rates of suicide, divorce, and alcoholism? I'm sure Gene would posit that the reason for that is because, well, ACAB. Is that true of soldiers then too? Gene, who also have high rates of all those above? Or maybe does it have something to do with seeing the worst humanity has to offer in and day out, being constantly in fear of your own life while you see it? You have a right to your opinions. All of us do. I tuned in for years because I want to hear your thoughts on movies, not politics or cops. And Gene, as someone who considers Bram Stoker's Dracula their favorite film of all time and completely related to your need for sensory experience after watching it at the slumber party when you first saw it, I always considered you somewhat of a kindred spirit. Maybe consider that before you make pronouncements like ACAB on your show, and you might have some fans that you're not just alienating or offending with your statements with that, you're actually hurting them. My dad was a Vietnam vet and a cop for 33 years. People he had arrested came to his funeral because they said he had treated them with decency and respect on their worst day. My cousin was also a cop, killed himself a few years ago. In part, he said in his suicide note because a profession he believed in, which he went into to try and help others, was now being likened to Nazism by people like you. So no, not all cops are bastards. That comes from Molly.
So Molly, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss. That really does suck. And I appreciate your father's service to the United States. I do take issue with a couple of things that you pointed out. So first off, cops being in danger or in fear of their lives, right? You know what jobs are more deadly than being a cop? Fishing, hunting, logging, roofing, construction workers, aircraft pilots, flight engineers, recyclable material collectors, iron and steel workers, delivery drivers, truck drivers, underground mining machine operators, farmers, and agricultural workers. But they don't get any mention when people are talking about how do they go to work every day in fear of their lives? Does that make them go out and hurt people? But that's not even the point. What you mentioned about the funeral with your father, you know why those people showed up? Because it was actually a police officer who wasn't a total piece of shit. But beyond all of that, I want to tell you a little story. Okay. So I was just in New Orleans for Mardi Gras with my wife, Sarah, and we had a wonderful Christmas too. Thank you for bringing that up. Went to Mardi Gras, met up with Kenny, one of our listeners, right? Kenny's great. He was working the parade route. He was keeping people safe. He was making sure that people could cross the street when they needed to. He was providing a vital service. I totally understand that. But the fact of the matter is policing is a profession. And the profession, as it is carried out in the United States of America, is an unethical profession. And that's my issue with it, right? It's not about the person as an individual. It's the fact that they are taking a job, and that job makes them do unethical things. That has to do with bias. It has to do with what it is that they're actually enforcing, who they're protecting, what laws they're carrying out. Like, there is a lot to dislike about policing. And that's my point about all cops are bastards. Doctors, okay, they may fuck up, but that's not what their job is intended to do, right? Their job is not intentionally hurting people. Police officers, in many cases, that is the case. So I stand by my position that all cops are bastards. And if you choose to be a police officer, right, then you're choosing to partake in an unethical profession. That's my stance. And why I brought it up during Elf, it's not to ruin the holidays, because the question was posed, why are the Central Park Rangers such assholes, and why are they trying to hurt Santa Claus? And my point was, because they're police. That's it. That's all.
See, again, maybe I'm the idiot here. I never heard that phrase before, that it's like some slogan from the 20s, ACAB.
Like where it started?
Yeah, the origin of it
started in the UK.
Yeah, in the 20s.
Yeah,
it was the abbreviation.
Yeah, see, but all coppers are bastards. Yeah.
You see, and I don't get upset when Gene says it, and Gene would disagree with this, because I know the way Gene is with people. Like, even now, he just said, it's not the people, it's the profession. And if you choose to be in that profession, then Gene has friends who are police, who are in law enforcement. I think the issue that Molly is taking is that not all. You can't make a blanket statement like that.
Yes, you can.
You're telling me there's not one.
No. Okay, listen. Marketers ruin everything. I am a marketer. That is my profession. And I can say marketers ruin everything. We do. I choose to partake in that profession for a paycheck. Is it a good profession? No. Do you know why? Because we ruin anything that is good. Marketers will latch onto and exploit it until it's bad. So marketers are bastards too. I accept it. And there are police officers who also accept, yeah, my line of work makes me a fucking bastard, but it's a line of work that I choose to do because I find it gratifying or rewarding or whatever other reason. That's my point. And and on the perfect episode, we talk about journalists, right? Again, they perform a vital service. Sometimes and a lot of times that service makes them underhanded individuals that maybe people don't find quite scrupulous. That's okay too. But you have to own up to it. You have to accept it. And again, got to point out to the thing with Kenny is I think Kenny's a good dude, but I don't agree with his line of work.
And I do. I want to besmirch one other industry, roofers. Those motherfuckers. They are all dishonest except for my good friend DRS Roofing, Central Florida. If you need a roof done, he is the one.
Big deal. I mean, maybe they're dishonest because their lives are on the line, though.
They do. They fall off the fucking roofs all the time.
They fall off the roof all the time.
They do. It is hard.
It ruins your day.
But most of them are dishonest bastards, faking hail damage. Yeah.
Well, and Molly's not alone, because we got another email, this one from Joe, who has something similar to say. Joe says, in the episode covering Legend, the host responded to a listener who said that he would no longer listen because of Gene's outright contempt for law enforcement. Big D replied, I don't know why anybody would stop listening because of Gene's opinion on the matter. Well, I wouldn't stop listening to the podcast because of the ideological statements of the host unless those beliefs were categorically insensitive or harmful to certain groups. I will say that I no longer respect Gene's opinion, as I can't get behind someone who makes such bigoted, concocted, and ludicrous claims such as all police are bastards. Gene said that he doesn't see the police as a group of people, which is undoubtedly false, as he is evidently judging all law enforcement agents on the same exact discriminatory basis. Gene is in denial, or is intentionally being deceptive. Either way, he is letting us know that his bias supersedes his acuity. If the show is covering a police drama, is Gene going to give it a low score if it portrays police officers in a positive manner? I'd say absolutely, which makes everything he says suspect. Anyway, I'll still probably tune in each week. I do enjoy listening to the 80s and 90s film coverage as well as the witty banter from all hosts, but from now on I'll always question the motivation and opinions of a self-described social justice warrior who's willfully intolerant of an entire faction of people, seemingly based solely on his interaction with a select few.
Okay, hold on there, Joe. I know we're getting close to the end of the episode, but I gotta chime in here again. Okay, so why are police not a group of people? Because if Big D wakes up and he goes, "Hey, today I decided I don't want to be white anymore." Guess what? He's still white, right? If Big D walks up and he's like, "I don't want to be a dude anymore," at least today when he woke up, he's still a dude, right? You don't get choice in that matter. That's when you belong to a group of people.
I could identify differently if I woke up today.
Yeah, you could identify differently, but you're still biologically a thing until you change that thing, right? However, in the case of your profession, you could stop your profession tomorrow if you chose to, instantly, immediately. You could stop it tonight. You could write a letter of resignation. You're done with your profession. That is not a group of people. That is a job, right? And that's my point, is that if you are choosing to partake in a profession that I find unethical, I say you are a bastard. That's all. It's that simple. And so, Joe, I do appreciate your open-mindedness as far as still being able to listen and knowing that that's just my personal perspective. It is not the opinion of the podcast officially, until I convince them all otherwise. And to suggest that I cannot judge a work of fiction based on the way police are portrayed is a little bit silly. I mean, we've done plenty of police movies, and I never was biased against the cops in the movie because that's fiction. In fact, those are the cops I'd like to see. If cops actually stopped crimes and actually went all out and ruined their lives to solve murders, and that might be something, actually, an actual crime deterrent.
Well, I actually want to say I believe that your bias impacted your review of True Detective season 4. I think you would have been more objective, but no. I want to thank both of these listeners and write-up. This is a very thoughtfully written 2 emails, and I think a lot of what we get is just, "Oh, fuck you guys fucking suck." I thought this was a good conversation.
Yeah. I got it. Molly was throwing some shade. Let's be real.
Yes, but again,
she was bringing in me like I was comfy and cozy in my holiday home while the poor cops are out there on the street busting tail. Those cops were fucking. I've been on ride-alongs with police. Okay, it's not. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I had to deal with this with my nephew who was preaching about that I was part of the military-industrial complex and how because I chose to join the military that I was involved in like the killing of children and innocent civilians. So I understand it, but you know what? How I said you shouldn't stop listening about it is because when he would spout that shit to me, I would just say, you know what? I still love him. It's his opinion. It's whatever. But I'm a little forgiving like that.
Keep writing in about cops. I'll keep talking about them. All right, Big D, what do you have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, Salvatore is the owner of an Italian pizzeria in Brooklyn. A neighboring local, bugging out, becomes upset when he sees that the pizzeria's Wall of Fame exhibits only Italian actors. Bugging out believes that a pizzeria in a black neighborhood should showcase black actors, but Sal disagrees. The wall becomes a symbol of racism and hate to Bugging Out and the other people in the neighborhood. And tension rises. This was commissioned by Grant L., came out in 1989, and of course it is a Spike Lee classic that would be great to go back and revisit once again.
If you thought listeners were pissed now, just wait. All right. Well, thank you, Grant, for commissioning the upcoming movie. Thank you, Aaron, for exposing us to Matilda. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movie. Be sure to follow us on social media, share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, which is about police, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen, which also is sort of about police. You can find all the information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D and Ash, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next time for the following movie.
Ooh-wee. It's gonna be a scorcher today.
Universal Pictures presents a new film from Spike Lee.
Good morning, Miss Mother Sister.
Now, Mookie, don't work too hard today. The man says it's gonna be hot as the devil.
I've been here 25 years. Sal's famous pizzeria is here to stay. trust me.
Mookie, the last time I trusted you, we ended up with a son.
I know you can't stand it. You can't stand it.
Hey, Sal, how we gonna brothers on the wall here?
You want brothers on the wall?
Love.
Get your own place. You can do what you want to do.
What I tell you about that noise? What I tell you about them pictures?
You talk to him, brother, talk to him.
You the man. No, you the man. No, you the man. No, you the man.
The first time you turn your back, boom. Right here, man, in the back.
Y'all take a chill. You'd like to sign a petition to boycott Sal's famous pizzeria?
Hear me, what you ought to do is boycott that no-good barber that messed up your head.
And that's the double truth.
Fight the power. Fight the power.
You know, deep down inside, I think you wish you were black.
Who told you to step on my sneakers? Who told you to walk on my side of the block? Who told you to be in my neighborhood?
I own this brownstone.
Who told you to buy a brownstone on my block, in my neighborhood, on my side of the street?
I can't even hear myself think.
From Spike Lee, director of School Days, and She's Gotta Have It.
Good people, please. If we don't stop this and stop it now, we're going to do something we're going to regret for the rest of our lives. Doctor?
Come on, what?
Always do the right thing.
That's it?
That's it.
I got it. I'm gone.